Let me ask you something. Have you ever helped someone again and again, only to be taken for granted? Have you ever smiled, even when inside you were hurting? And tell me honestly, how many times did you say, yes, when your heart was screaming, no? If you are too nice, people don't see your kindness, they see your availability. And in 2026, being too nice is not a virtue anymore. It's a silent way of self-destruction. Let us understand this very calmly, very honestly. Niceness, when it is not rooted in self-respect, slowly becomes an invitation. An invitation for people to step over you, lean on you, and sometimes wipe their feet on your emotions. Not because they are evil people, but because human nature follows patterns. People learn how to treat you by watching what you tolerate. Many of us confuse being nice with being noble. We think that if we keep adjusting, keep forgiving, keep giving, one day people will finally understand our value. But life does not work on hope. Life works on behavior. When you keep showing others that your comfort is negotiable, they start believing that it truly is. See, exploitation rarely begins loudly. It starts quietly, with small things. Someone cancels plans at the last moment, and you say, it's okay. Someone speaks to you harshly, and you smile it away. Someone keeps asking for favors, but is never available when you need help, and you tell yourself, maybe they are busy. Slowly, what you call kindness becomes a pattern they call convenience. And the most painful part is this: you start normalizing your own discomfort. You stop asking yourself, is this fair? Instead, you ask, how can I adjust more? This is where niceness turns toxic, not because being kind is wrong, but because being kind at the cost of your self-worth sends a dangerous message is, I will tolerate disrespect to keep peace. But tell me something, what kind of peace is this, where you are constantly at war with yourself? People do not exploit kindness, they exploit lack of boundaries. There is a huge difference. A person with self-respect can be extremely kind, yet very firm. They give, but they also know when to stop. They listen, but they also speak up. Their kindness has a spine. And because it has a spine, people think twice before crossing it. When niceness has no spine, people unconsciously lose respect. Not because they want to, but because the human mind equates strength with limits. When there are no limits, there is no signal to stop. Imagine a road with no speed breakers, no signs, no signals. What will happen? Accidents. Not always intentional, but inevitable. Many times people say, I don't understand why others don't value me. I do so much for them. The uncomfortable truth is, value is not created by how much you give. Value is created by how much you value yourself. When you keep giving without discernment, your giving loses meaning. It becomes expected. And once something is expected, it is no longer appreciated. Another important thing, people often think they are being nice, but deep inside they are afraid. Afraid of conflict, afraid of being disliked, afraid of being left alone, so they overcompensate with niceness. They think, if I am useful, I will be needed. But being needed is not the same as being respected. People need tissue paper too, but once used, it is thrown away. Self-respect changes this equation completely. When you respect yourself, you teach people how to treat you without saying a word. Your silence becomes confident, not fearful. Your yes becomes meaningful, not automatic. And your no becomes clear, not guilty. Some people will not like this change. And that is okay, because the ones who benefited from your lack of boundaries will always resist your growth. When you stop being overly nice, a few people may say, you have changed. What they actually mean is, you have stopped being easy to use. Understand this deeply. Losing such people is not a loss, it is a correction. In life, respect always comes before affection. People may smile at a person they don't respect, but they will never truly value them. When you stand for yourself, calmly, without anger, you send a powerful message. I am kind, but I am not careless with my dignity. Niceness should come from abundance, not insecurity. Give because you want to, not because you are scared of what will happen if you don't. When you protect your self-respect, your kindness becomes pure. It is no longer a plea for acceptance. It becomes a gift, freely given, freely withdrawn. And this is the shift we must make in 2026. Stop measuring your goodness by how much you endure. Start measuring it by how honestly you live. Because the moment your niceness begins to cost you your peace, your confidence, and your self-worth, it is no longer kindness. It is self-neglect. And the world never protects those who do not protect themselves. Let us reflect on this very gently, because this point is often misunderstood. Kindness is beautiful when it flows from awareness. But when kindness turns into obligation, it stops being kindness. It becomes pressure. It becomes fear. It becomes a silent agreement you never consciously signed, but keep honoring every day. Many people believe that being kind means always being available, always helping, always agreeing, always putting others first. But true kindness is never forced. The moment you feel guilty for choosing yourself, understand this clearly. You are no longer being kind, you are being conditioned. Kindness is a choice. And every choice requires freedom. If you are kind because you are scared of disappointing people, that is not compassion. That is anxiety wearing a smile. If you help because you fear losing relationships, that is not love. That is emotional dependency. Real kindness comes from strength, not from fear. Think about it. When you give something willingly, there is joy, there is peace. But when you give because you feel you must, there is exhaustion. There is resentment. Slowly, silently, bitterness begins to grow. And the worst part is, you start blaming the very people you chose to help. This is why kindness must always remain voluntary. You do not owe your time to everyone who asks. You do not owe your energy to everyone who demands. And you definitely do not owe access to people who repeatedly disrespect your limits. Just because someone needs something does not automatically mean you are responsible for providing it. We must understand this deeply. Responsibility without choice becomes burden. Many people are kind not because they want to be, but because they were taught to be. They were told, good people don't say no, good people sacrifice, good people always adjust. Over time, this teaching creates a false identity. You start equating goodness with self-denial, and slowly, you forget where generosity ends and self-erasure begins. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you said yes while your body felt tired, your mind felt drained, and your heart felt heavy? That heaviness is your inner wisdom telling you that something is wrong. But instead of listening, you silence it with logic. It's okay, they need me. But what about when you need you? Keenness that ignores self-care eventually turns into burnout. And burnout does not make you more loving. It makes you distant, irritable, cold. The very kindness you wanted to protect begins to die inside you. A truly kind person knows when to step forward and when to step back. They understand that their energy is not infinite. They understand that helping everyone all the time is not noble, it is unrealistic. Even the sun sets. Even the moon disappears. Rest is not selfish. Rest is respect. You are not a bad person for choosing yourself sometimes. You are a balanced person. When kindness is a choice, it remains pure. You help because you want to, not because you are scared of consequences. And because it is a choice, you do not expect anything in return. No appreciation, no validation, no loyalty. You give and you let go. But when kindness becomes obligation, expectations creep in silently. You start hoping people will understand your effort. You start wanting them to reciprocate. And when they don't, you feel hurt. Not because they are wrong, but because you were giving from a place of expectation, not freedom. Freedom is the soul of kindness. There is another hard truth we must accept: when you give too easily, people stop asking respectfully. They start assuming. And assumption kills gratitude. What was once kindness becomes entitlement. And entitlement slowly turns into disrespect. This is why saying, "I can't," is not cruelty. It is clarity. When you say no calmly, without anger or apology, you teach people something important: that your kindness has limits. And limits do not reduce love. Limits protect it. A river without banks becomes a flood, and floods destroy everything in their path, including themselves. Some people will not like this version of you. They will say you have become selfish. But understand this: the people who benefit from your exhaustion will always be uncomfortable with your boundaries. Their discomfort does not mean you are wrong. It means the dynamic has changed. You are not here to be endlessly consumed. In 2026, we must redefine kindness. Kindness does not mean neglecting yourself. Kindness does not mean tolerating disrespect. Kindness does not mean saying yes when your soul is screaming no. Kindness means being honest with others and with yourself. Choose your kindness wisely. Give where there is respect. Give where there is appreciation. Give where your heart feels light, not heavy. Because when kindness is chosen consciously, it heals both the giver and the receiver. And when you finally understand this, something beautiful happens. Your kindness becomes deeper, stronger, more peaceful. Because now it is not an obligation, it is a gift. Let us sit with this thought quietly, because this one requires courage. Saying no is one of the most misunderstood words in human relationships. People think no is harsh. They think no is rejection. They think no is selfish. But in reality, no is often the most honest sentence you can offer. A dishonest yes may look polite on the surface, but inside it slowly poisons the relationship. Every time you say yes when you don't mean it, something inside you shrinks. You feel it in the body first, a tightness in the chest, a heaviness in the stomach, a quiet resistance you choose to ignore. You convince yourself it's fine. You tell yourself you will manage. But the body never lies. It remembers every false agreement you make, and those false agreements don't disappear. They accumulate. At first, you don't notice the damage. You continue smiling. You continue showing up. But slowly, irritation starts leaking into your tone. You become less patient, less present. Not because the other person changed, but because you betrayed yourself too many times in the name of being nice. This is how resentment is born. Resentment is not anger at others. It is anger at yourself for not speaking when you should have. It is the emotional interest charged on every dishonest yes you gave. And the longer you avoid saying no, the more resentment grows, quietly, invisibly, until one day it explodes over something very small. People then say, "I don't know what happened, you suddenly changed." But you didn't change suddenly. You were eroding slowly. Saying no, on the other hand, brings clarity. It may feel uncomfortable in the moment, but it prevents long-term damage. When you say no honestly, you allow the other person to see reality. You give them the truth instead of an illusion. And truth, even when it disappoints, builds trust. Think about it. Would you rather someone help you while secretly resenting you? Or someone say calmly, I can't do this right now. One feels polite, the other feels respectful. Politeness fades, respect remains. Many people struggle to say no because they fear conflict. They fear emotional reactions. They fear being misunderstood. But avoiding conflict by lying to yourself only postpones pain. It doesn't remove it. It just shifts it to a later date with interest. When you say yes without capacity, you show up half-hearted. You listen but you're not really there. You give but without warmth, and people sense this. They may not say it, but they feel it. And that creates distance anyway. So the very thing you were trying to protect, the relationship slowly weakens. No does not destroy connection. Dishonesty does. There is also a deep confusion between kindness and compliance. Compliance is about pleasing. Kindness is about care. Sometimes caring means saying no. Sometimes care means disappointing someone today so that bitterness doesn't destroy the relationship tomorrow. A child who is allowed everything does not feel loved. They feel unsafe. In the same way, relationships without boundaries do not feel loving. They feel confusing. When you never say no, people never know where they stand with you. And that uncertainty eventually creates imbalance. Saying no is also a form of self-respect. It tells your mind, your body, and your emotions that they matter. It says, my energy is not unlimited. My time is not disposable. My peace is not cheap. This internal message is powerful. Because the way you treat yourself teaches others how to treat you. When you start saying no without guilt, something shifts. Your yes becomes cleaner, stronger, more sincere. When you say yes, people feel it. They feel your presence. They feel your willingness. And that makes your contribution valuable. But when you say yes out of fear, your yes becomes weak. People may get what they want, but they lose respect. Not because they are bad, but because humans naturally respect those who respect themselves. We must also understand that not everyone deserves access to you. Just because someone asks does not mean you must answer with agreement. Discernment is not arrogance. It is wisdom. You are allowed to choose where your energy goes. Some people will react negatively when you start saying no. They may accuse you of changing. They may say you've become selfish. But watch carefully. Those reactions tell you more about their expectations than about your character. Anyone who truly respects you will respect your no, even if they don't like it. And if someone only stays when you keep saying yes, ask yourself, were they connected to you or to your compliance? Saying no is not about pushing people away. It is about drawing healthy lines. Lines that protect your peace, your honesty, and your capacity to love genuinely. Because love cannot flow freely from a place of exhaustion. In 2026, let us normalize honest no's. Not aggressive, not defensive. Just calm, clear truth. Because every honest no protects you from future resentment. And every honest no creates space for a yes that actually means something. That is not cruelty. That is integrity. Let us understand this difference very quietly, because many lives are shaped and damaged by confusing these two ideas. Being liked feels good. It gives quick comfort. A smile, a compliment, a sense of belonging. But being liked is often superficial. It depends on agreement, convenience, and how little resistance you offer. Being valued, on the other hand, is deeper. It is built on respect, trust, and the sense that your presence actually matters, even when you are not pleasing. Many people spend their entire lives chasing likability. They soften their opinions. They hide their truth. They laugh at jokes they don't find funny. They agree even when they disagree. Slowly, their personality becomes flexible, adjustable, and non-threatening. People may enjoy their company, but they do not rely on them. They do not listen deeply. They do not take them seriously. Because likability does not require strength. Value does. When you try to be liked by everyone, you end up standing for nothing. And when you stand for nothing, people don't stand with you. They stand as around you until something more convenient comes along. Ask yourself honestly, how many people like you because you are pleasant, and how many value you because you are dependable, honest, and grounded. The answer can be uncomfortable, but clarity is always uncomfortable before it becomes liberating. Being liked often means avoiding friction. Being valued means being willing to create it when necessary. A valued person is not afraid to speak up. They are not afraid to say, "This doesn't feel right," or "I disagree." They may not always be popular in the moment, but they earn something far more important: credibility. People may smile at someone they like, but they seek guidance from someone they value. This is why many people feel invisible despite being socially active. They attend gatherings, they help others, they are polite and friendly. Yet when decisions are made, they are not consulted. When respect is distributed, they are overlooked, not because they are unworthy, but because they train people to see them as agreeable, not substantial. Likability is fragile. It disappears the moment you stop pleasing. Value remains even when you disappoint. Think about the people you truly respect in your life. They are not always the nicest. They are not always the most accommodating. But they are consistent, clear, honest. When they speak, you listen. When they say no, you understand. That is value. Chasing likability often forces you to betray your truth. And every time you betray your truth, you lose a little self-respect. Over time, this loss shows up in your posture, your voice, your decisions. You hesitate more. You doubt yourself. And people sense that doubt. They may still like you, but they stop trusting your authority. Value is built when your actions align with your words. When you don't say yes just to be accepted. When you don't laugh just to be included. When you don't shrink just to stay comfortable. Alignment creates presence. Presence creates impact. Impact creates value. Another hard truth: people like those who make them feel good. People value those who make them think, grow, or feel safe. One is emotional sugar. The other is nourishment. Sugar tastes good immediately. Nourishment sustains life. If your relationships are built only on likability, they will demand constant performance. You will always have to show up as a version of yourself that others approve of. That is exhausting. And eventually, you will burn out trying to maintain an image that is not rooted in who you truly are. When you shift your focus from being liked to being respected, something changes internally. You become less reactive. You stop chasing approval. You start choosing honesty over harmony. And ironically, this often leads to deeper connections. Not wider, but deeper. Some people will drift away when you stop performing. Let them. Those connections were held together by convenience, not character. The ones who stay will see you more clearly, and they will value you more, not because you are perfect, but because you are real. Being valued also means you are allowed to have boundaries without guilt. You are allowed to have standards. You are allowed to say, "This is not okay for me." Likability would ask you to swallow discomfort. Value allows you to express it. In professional life, in friendships, in family, value determines longevity. Liked people are remembered briefly. Valued people are remembered deeply. They leave an imprint, they shape outcomes, they influence direction. In 2026, we must make a conscious choice. Do we want quick smiles or lasting respect? Do we want applause or acknowledgement? Do we want to be agreeable or dependable? Because at the end of the day, being liked feeds the ego, being valued feeds the soul. And when the noise fades, the crowd moves on, and opinions change as they always do, only one thing remains: the quiet dignity of knowing that you did not lose yourself just to be liked. Let us look at this truth without fear, because it reveals more than it hurts. Boundaries are not walls, they are mirrors. They reflect back to people who they really are in relation to you. And the moment you place a boundary, reactions begin to surface. Some people will understand, some will adjust, and some will become uncomfortable, irritated, even angry. That reaction itself becomes information. Many people say they value you, but only as long as you are convenient. The moment you say, "This doesn't work for me," or "I need space," or "I won't accept this behavior," their response tells you everything. A respectful person may not like your boundary, but they will honor it. A manipulative person will try to negotiate it. A user will try to break it. And a selfish person will take it personally. This is why boundaries are such powerful filters. They don't push the right people away, they reveal the wrong ones. When someone gets angry at your boundary, it is rarely about the boundary itself. It is about the loss of access. They were comfortable with the version of you that had no limits. Your growth threatens their control, their convenience, or their entitlement. And instead of reflecting inward, they project outward. This is where many people become confused. They think, maybe I am being too harsh. Maybe I am wrong. But understand this deeply: healthy people do not punish you for protecting yourself. They may feel disappointed, they may feel uncomfortable, but they do not attack your character for having needs. If someone responds to your boundary with guilt, tripping, emotional pressure, or anger, they are not reacting to your behavior. They are reacting to the fact that their behavior is no longer being tolerated. Boundaries don't create distance. They expose imbalance that was already there. For a long time, many of us survive by staying silent. We tolerate small disrespect. We ignore discomfort. We laugh things off. And people assume everything is fine. But silence is not agreement. Silence is often endurance. And endurance has a limit. The moment you stop enduring and start expressing, dynamics shift. People who genuinely care will try to understand. People who benefited from your silence will try to silence you again, this time with words like, "You've changed," "You're becoming selfish," or "Why are you so sensitive now?" These words are not feedback, they are resistance. A boundary is simply a sentence that says, "This is where I end and you begin." It is clarity, not cruelty. But those who never wanted clarity will see it as aggression, because clarity removes their advantage. This is why boundaries require courage. Not because they are wrong, but because they expose truths you may not be ready to see. They reveal which relationships are built on mutual respect and which ones survive only on your compliance. And yes, some relationships will not survive your boundaries. That can feel painful. But ask yourself, were they relationships or were they arrangements? Healthy relationships adapt. Unhealthy ones demand submission. Another important truth: your boundary may be reasonable, but others may still react emotionally. That does not mean you need to explain yourself repeatedly. Over-explaining is often a sign of guilt. A calm boundary does not need justification. It needs consistency. When you keep holding your boundary, reactions change. Some people leave, some people adjust, some people grow. And that growth, whether yours or theirs, is never wasted. Boundaries also teach you about yourself. They force you to ask, what am I comfortable with? What drains me? What do I need to protect my peace? These questions lead you closer to self-respect. And self-respect is not negotiable. There is a common fear that boundaries will make you lonely, but loneliness comes from being unseen, not from being selective. Being surrounded by people who disrespect you is far lonelier than standing alone with dignity. When you respect your own boundaries, you stop chasing validation. You stop begging for understanding. You let people choose how they respond, and their choice becomes clarity. Some will walk away. Let them. Some will stay and learn how to treat you better. Welcome them. And some will reveal a side of themselves you had been ignoring. Accept it. Boundaries are not tests for others. They are commitments to yourself. In 2026, we must stop apologizing for our limits. Limits are not flaws. They are signs of emotional maturity. They show that you value your time, your energy, and your mental health. When someone gets angry at your boundary, don't rush to fix it. Pause, observe, learn, because in that moment, they are showing you exactly who they are and how they saw you before. And once you see clearly, you are no longer confused. You are free. Let us be very honest with ourselves here, because this point touches a place most people avoid. Over-giving often looks like generosity on the surface, but deep inside, it is usually driven by fear. Fear of being forgotten, fear of being replaced, fear of not being enough. So we give more than we should, more than we can afford, emotionally, mentally, sometimes even financially, hoping that our giving will secure our place in someone's life. But love does not grow out of exhaustion, and respect does not grow out of sacrifice that was never asked for. Many people who over-give believe they are doing it out of pure kindness. But if you look closely, there is often an unspoken expectation hidden beneath the giving. Not always of return, but of reassurance. Reassurance that they matter, that they are needed, that they won't be abandoned. Giving becomes a way to stay relevant. This is where fear quietly takes control. When you give from fear, you don't pause to ask whether the other person is capable of receiving in a healthy way. You don't ask whether the relationship is balanced. You don't ask whether your giving is appreciated or simply consumed. You keep giving even when it hurts, because stopping feels more frightening than continuing. And that fear is usually not about the present moment, it comes from old wounds. From times you felt ignored, unloved, or invisible. So now you try to earn connection through effort. You try to secure love through usefulness. But love cannot be earned like a salary. The more you try to buy it with sacrifice, the more it loses its meaning. Overgiving also creates an unhealthy dynamic. When one person keeps giving and the other keeps receiving, balance disappears. The receiver may not even realize what is happening at first. They simply get used to the flow. And once someone gets used to receiving without effort, gratitude slowly fades. What began as generosity turns into entitlement. And then something painful happens. The giver starts feeling unseen, unappreciated, drained. They look around and think, after everything I've done, how can they treat me like this? But the truth is, the pattern was set long ago. Over-giving taught others that you will always show up, no matter the cost to yourself. Fear makes us ignore red flags. We overlook lack of reciprocity. We excuse inconsistency. We normalize emotional imbalance. Because deep down, we are afraid that if we stop giving, the connection will disappear. But ask yourself, if a relationship survives only because you keep overgiving, is it a relationship or a dependency? Healing this pattern does not start by giving more. It starts by looking inward. It starts by asking, what am I afraid of losing? Often, the answer is not the person in front of you, but the feeling of being wanted. Once you become aware of this fear, your giving changes. You stop giving to be needed. You start giving because you genuinely want to, and when you don't want to, you stop without guilt. This shift feels uncomfortable at first, because fear has been driving your behavior for a long time. When you stop over giving, anxiety may rise. You may feel selfish. You may feel like you are doing something wrong. But that discomfort is not guilt, it is withdrawal from an old pattern. And here is something important: when you stop over giving, some people will change their behavior toward you. Some will step up, some will step back, some will leave. That reaction is not your failure, it is feedback. People who truly care will not disappear when you stop exhausting yourself. They will meet you in the middle. People who were only there for what you provided will slowly drift away. Let them. They were never connected to you, they were connected to your giving. Over giving also disconnects you from yourself. You become so focused on meeting others' needs that you forget your own. You stop asking, "How do I feel?" You stop honoring your limits. Over time, this creates emptiness, and no amount of giving can fill an emptiness caused by self-neglect. You are not here to prove your worth through sacrifice. Your worth exists even when you are resting, even when you are quiet, even when you say no. When fear no longer drives your giving, your relationships become healthier, your energy becomes protected, your kindness becomes sustainable. You give less, but what you give carries more meaning. In 2026, it is time to stop confusing love with self-abandonment. It is time to stop using generosity as a shield against rejection. Heal the fear, and your giving will naturally find balance. Because when giving comes from wholeness, not fear, it nourishes everyone involved, including you. Let us understand this slowly, because it sounds uncomfortable at first, but it is deeply true. When you are always available, people stop valuing your presence. Not because they don't care, but because the human mind assigns value to what is limited. When something is always accessible, it fades into the background. When it is not, attention sharpens. Think about your own life, the things you waited for, worked for, or could lose. Those things mattered more. Not because they were better, but because they were not guaranteed. The same principle applies emotionally. When you are constantly available, replying immediately, showing up every time, saying yes regardless of your state, you unintentionally send a message. My time has no cost. And when something has no cost, it has no perceived value. This is not about playing games or acting cold. It is about understanding energy. Availability is energy. And energy that is always open gets taken for granted. Many people believe that being available proves care, but care is not measured by speed or sacrifice. Care is measured by presence and intention. You can be deeply caring without being constantly accessible. When you reduce availability, something interesting happens. People become more mindful. They think before they ask. They plan instead of assuming. They start respecting your time because they know it is not unlimited. Scarcity creates respect, not artificial distance, but natural boundaries. There is also an important distinction between absence and neglect. Absence is intentional, neglect is careless. When you choose when and where to show up, your presence becomes meaningful. When you show up everywhere, all the time, your presence becomes noise. This is why some people feel drained yet invisible. They are always there, but rarely felt. Because overexposure reduces impact. When you stop being instantly available, you create space. Space allows others to miss you. And missing someone is not unhealthy. It is how appreciation grows. You don't value the air you breathe until you struggle to breathe. Constant access removes awareness. Reducing availability also forces others to take responsibility. When you are not always there to fix, listen, or rescue, people begin to stand on their own. That is healthy. Overavailability can create emotional dependency, where others rely on you instead of growing. And dependency is not love, it is comfort. Some people react negatively when your availability decreases. They may say you've changed. They may say you're distant. But look carefully, are they missing you? Or are they missing what you used to provide? This is not about becoming unavailable to punish others. It is about becoming unavailable to protect yourself. Your time is your life. Every minute you give away without intention is a minute you never get back. When you respect your time, others start respecting it too. Not because you demand it, but because you demonstrate it. When you are selective with availability, your yes becomes powerful. People know that if you say yes, you mean it. And that sincerity is felt. Your presence becomes grounded, not rushed, calm, not resentful. There is also a deep self-respect that develops when you are not always available. You stop reacting to every message, every request, every emotional pull. You start responding instead of reacting. And response comes from choice, not pressure. This creates emotional maturity in your relationships. People learn to approach you with clarity, not urgency. They learn to value your presence instead of consuming it. Some relationships may weaken when availability decreases. That is not loss, that is alignment. Relationships that depended on constant access were never sustainable. Strong relationships adjust. They find rhythm. They respect pace. Reducing availability does not mean withdrawing love. It means delivering love with intention. In 2026, we must let go of the belief that constant access equals connection. Connection is not about quantity. It is about quality. A few meaningful moments are worth more than endless shallow availability. When you stop being endlessly available, you reclaim your energy. And when you reclaim your energy, you become more present in the moments that truly matter. That presence is felt. That presence is valued. Scarcity does not make you distant. It makes you deliberate. And deliberate presence is where real respect begins.